Alrighty, and so as we are preparing for this, we want to just welcome those of you who are joining us on the webinar and those of you who are joining us live on Instagram as well. Alrighty, so let's get started here. You ready for this? Pop that camera around so we've got our Instagram showing up. Yay, okay. For those of you on Instagram, as we proceed, I will move my camera closer to the screen as necessary so that you can see details. And that's always a good thing, right? And welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with me today. I always welcome questions. I request that you use the chat function if you are with me on the webinar. Of course, if you're with me on Instagram, you can just type your questions in live there. Good to see you, Malatek. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Instagram. So today, as we talk about broken bone surgeries and iris changes, so we're looking at how things that are non-genetic affect the iris. My name is Judith Cobb. I'm a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, certified iridologist, and certified comprehensive iridology instructor. I've been working as a holistic health coach for 40 years, like 4 full decades now. Blows my mind, I'll tell you. Then again, I'm also not old enough to have a 39-year-old child, right? So, thank you again for being with me and for taking time out of your schedule to be here. We want to talk about this particular topic because there are so many misconceptions that are continually being repeated and repeated and repeated by people who have iridology training that is very archaic. That is old training. These people haven't kept up with the new research. And we know that the things that they are teaching from 40 and 50 years ago are outdated. There's new research. We need to keep up with the times. And when we've got iridologists who don't, it gives all of us a bad name. So my mission in life is to get the most accurate information out there about iridology. Again, when we are doing iridology, we need to keep up to date. And these little free sessions that I do, hopefully are doing that. Hopefully we are finding people who have some iridology background and we are teaching them current information so they can move forward. Again, if you've got questions or comments, if you're with me on the webinar, put them in the chat box, please. If you're with me on Instagram, just post them as we go and I will see them. All righty, you ready to roll forward with this? Awesome. Now I do have a tech challenge in that I've changed my web browser and it won't let me share things the way I like to. So I've got to manage 2 computer screens here to see everything I need to. Now we are just going to touch lightly on this owl story. I touch on this a lot in many of my presentations. The story goes that a little boy, an 11-year-old boy named Ignaz von Patchley in Hungary, I believe it was, caught or trapped an owl or a hawk, and the bird either had a broken leg or a broken wing beforehand, or it got broken in the catching of the bird. And so there's so many versions of the story that we're never quite sure what is the correct version. It says that Ignaz saw a dark line form in the bird's iris, and or it was there to begin with, and as he nursed this bird back to health, the dark line disappeared. Now, again, what we need to remember is that this is the story of an 11-year-old boy, and we know that birds' eyes and animal eyes are very different from human eyes. Birds don't have at all the same structure to the surface of their eyes that a human does. So that's one thing to remember. And another thing to remember is, don't you think that if this was possible, that if this line showing up in the eye was possible, and if this line disappearing was possible, don't you think that veterinarians would have seen this? Don't you think that people who work in these wild bird sanctuaries where they bring in injured and orphaned birds and they nurse them back to health, don't you think they would have seen this as well? And so we need to take this idea that that the eyes change because of physical trauma to the body. And we need to take that and just shelve it and put it away and put it to rest and not even go there. Today, we're actually going to look at 3 different cases of people who've had significant trauma or surgery to their body and how it showed up in their eyes. If indeed it did show up in their eyes, I'm going to show you some interesting things here that can really help to clarify things. So the first case is quite personal. This is my eye from, hello Herbal Compass. Thank you for joining us on Instagram. Good to see you. This is my eye from March 2017. And what I really want you to pay attention to is this area right here, because on most iridology maps, this is where the arm shows up on the map, right? And so as we look at this, I want you to just burn this into your memory, because what happened later was in 2019, March of 2019, so just about exactly 2 years after this photo was taken, I slipped on the ice. Yes, I live in a part of the world where the air in the wind hurts my face, right? And so I slipped on the ice. It was dark out. I was rushing to catch public transit. I slipped on the ice, landed, knew instantly that I had broken something. I felt that nerve twang go through my hand, and I instantly thought, oh my goodness, I am so going to throw up, right? So I went shocky pretty quick. And actually, this is what I looked like waiting in the ER. My wrist does not normally have a lump like this. And so this is what the x-ray showed. There were actually 2 breaks, one on this bone and one on the other side as well. I had, as the orthopedic surgeon said, I'd done a really good job. Words you never want the orthopedic surgeon to say. So 2 broken bones in my wrist. Now, I don't know how to read an x-ray, but here is one break right here. And there's another break somewhere else up higher. And I know that because I've got a double surgery. So we're going to look at the repair x-rays in just a moment. That's me the day after, as I'm at home, anesthetics wearing off. I was not about to show my face because I felt like garbage. Okay, then here's what we got. 19th of March, so a couple of days after the surgery. I want you to have a really close look at this. Look at this area of my eye. The fiber structure has not changed. There's no black line. There is no lacuna. There's nothing like that happening in this area of my eye whatsoever. Now, if I was using the old school iridology, I would have expected to see big black line. I mean, we had 2 broken bones. We had a double surgery, so 2 incisions to install 2 metal plates and 12 screws. Now, doesn't that sound like enough physical damage to show something in the eye if the eye is going to change? Now, I'm going to tell you, I have been through the airport since then, and I do not set off metal detectors, and that's a good thing. Just saying. So again, 2 weeks post-surgery, this was on cast change day because they needed to take off the surgical cast, make sure that the incisions were healing, and then put me in a regular cast. And so here we go. We've got the proof in the pudding, and you won't be able to see it very clearly if I hold my arm up, but here we go, another view of the metal plates that are in there. Now, here's the thing to remember. None of this changed my genetic structure. The irides reflect our genetic structure. The irides, the colored part of the iris, shows us what our genetic potentials are. They don't show us our transient potentials, right? And so as we look at this, and here we go, there's 1 incision. This is again on cast change day. And the other incision on the side of my arm. Right, so this is on the pinky finger side of my arm. And so we've got lots of evidence of this trauma, and yet even on the 3rd of April, thinking, well, maybe it takes time for this to show up. There is still no difference. Still no difference, because these things did not change my genetic structure. I cannot pass on to my children, not that I'm going to be having any more kids right now, but if I was young enough to have children, I could not pass on to them a gene for metal plates in their arm, right? For a gene for the broken bone in the wrist, right? Could not do that. And so because of that, we're not going to see anything, because the iris itself is genetic. It's the inherent potentials. Alrighty, so looking at these three, just so you can see them side to side by side, right? There is no difference in the fiber structure whatsoever. We could simply superimpose those images one on top of the other, and you would not know there was anything. So just, and you know, this, okay, crazy iridologist herbalist here, right? Because here I am recovering from surgery, like that first set of post-surge pictures was just a few days after the surgery. And I'm thinking, I got to get pictures of this, right? Well, just because maybe I didn't think I had enough pictures on Mother's Day 2019. So this is like a week after I'm finally out of all the casts for my wrist, visiting my son for Mother's Day, slipped down the stairs, broke the olecranon off the elbow, broke it clean off. And, you know, this was another, there I am, there we go. My elbow does not normally look like that. And so had to have another surgery. Here I am in the elbow cast. What I did learn from this is scrub tops are amazing. They have wide enough sleeves and necklines that you can pull them on easily, get them on over a cast, and they've got lots of pockets. When you can't use your hand, they've got lots of pockets for your cell phone and your keys and your glasses and, you know, whatever else you need to be carrying. So looking at my eyes then, this is just about a week later. Again. So this is the 3rd break and the 3rd surgery in less than 12 weeks. Hi, Roman, good to see you. Hi, Higher Octaves, good to see you too. And Teresa Lynn, there's not a change. There is not a single change in this fiber structure, because this did not change my genetic structure. So there's the wrist on June 25th. Those plates are probably never coming out, and they wanted to x-ray to make sure I hadn't damaged anything in there. And there is my elbow now with wires and things in there looping around bones, through bones, anchored into bones to hold the olecranon in place so it could heal. A few months later, I thought, well, maybe there'll be a delayed reaction. Maybe we'll see some change in the fiber. Maybe it just takes time. And no, there is no change in the fiber. So my conclusion from this alone was breaks and surgeries don't show up in the iris. Now we might see an area where there is, where the iris is showing us an inherent predisposition towards the area being a little bit weaker, which may make it more susceptible to a break. But we always see the predisposition before in that case, right? The marking is not going to show up after the break. It's going to show up before the break. And truly, there is no marking in the eye for slipping on ice or falling downstairs. And so that's why it doesn't show up in the eye. Now, I want to share with you another case. This one is a little bit different. Actually, we're going to pop down a couple of, we're going to come back to that one in a minute. Okay, so here. These are the eyes of my son, a 23-year-old young man. And he recently had a hernia repair. So when we look at it, this is his right eye. He's got this beautiful, really fine fiber structure. So we've got good resilience there. When we look at the lower abdomen, which is going to show up over here, we're looking for something that suggests tissue weakness. There is really not much of anything there. So this is before his surgery. This is like a couple of years before when I got this camera. And then when he had the surgery, I had him come back in. I have a new camera. And so there's a little less light, so or a little brighter light, so the pupil's a bit bigger. And what we see is down here, again, there is no change in the fiber, even though he had that break in the peritoneal wall, which is a hernia, and he had it surgically repaired. There's nothing there. Nothing saying that he's had surgery. So really important for us to recognize that the surgery does not show up in the eye. Sometimes we'll see a predisposition to a weakness in an area, but that's not, and if it's a predisposition, then the damage hasn't happened yet. And if the person says, oh yeah, I've had surgery on that area, then what we see in the eye was the predisposition, not the result of the surgery. Does that make sense? The only time we see quote unquote surgery in the eye is if the eye was actually operated on. Right, now I want to show you how trauma can show up. We said earlier that the iris is inherent. It shows us our genetic predispositions. The sclera, however, is transient and dynamic. Transient and dynamic. You know that because if you've ever had a really good hard cry, and then you go and you look at your face in the mirror to splash cold water on your face to calm things down, you see that your eyes are really bloodshot, right? Those blood vessels in the eye are very sensitive. They respond fairly quickly to things. So what we're looking at right here is this is the eye of a 16-year-old girl. We're looking at this mark right here. Now, unfortunately, I did not have photos before this happened. This marking, however, correlates beautifully to what did happen. And so we know that because things do surface. Hello, hip hop, good to see you. Because we know that things do surface in the sclera and can be healed out of the sclera, this is an important marking. She was at school one day and a young man, for whom I have some very unpleasant adjectives, thought it would be hilarious to hit her on the head, on the front corner of her head, the right front corner of her head, with a very thick book. So he hit her very hard, and he caused in her a 3rd-degree concussion, which meant she pretty much almost lost the school year. She had to have readers for her in school to help her read things. She was confined to a dark room for a few weeks when this first happened, because we know that that is proper protocol for concussion. She was working with doctors and a concussion team and a spinal care team, all kinds of things. And so we saw this in her eye. This lines up exactly when we look at an iris map with an impact on the part of her head that correlates to where she was hit with that book. This is what we call a trauma fork. And a trauma fork means there has been a significant physical or toxic exposure. When we look at where the crotch of the trauma fork is, that crotch, if we draw a line straight from that, shows us exactly where the trauma happened in the body. And in her case, again, it happened right up in the upper right corner of her head, just right there. And so she suffered with that. Now let's look at that from a different angle. Here we go. Actually, this is a different eye. This isn't the same eye. But this is another example of, yes, this is another example of a trauma fork of someone who had a head injury. Now I want you to look at the two of these. Notice how this one comes much closer to the limbus or the edge of the iris than this one does. The closer it comes, the more significant the impact, the more serious the fallout from it, right? This is very, very close. And this is saying, yeah, head trauma, make sure this gets taken care of, right? This one is saying, yeah, there was a trauma. And yes, there will be some fallout from it, but it's not as significant as if it were closer. Now, this client has since moved to another city 2,000 miles away, so I cannot get updated eye photos of hers, although I would like to, because she is now 22 years old. So this is like 6 years ago. And she's gone to university. She's done some traveling. She is well healed. I would love to look and see if this has come out of her eyes, because technically it should. Technically it should have healed out of her eyes because she has no residual symptoms of it. So this is where we see things that can surface and disappear. Now, I wish I had sclera photos of my eyes from my broken arm incidents. Sadly, I do not. I thought I was doing well back then with all that was going on to get just regular eye photos. But it would have been interesting to have seen what the sclera was doing and how that had healed up potentially, correct? All righty. So what we see here is that the iris does not change as a result of cleanses we do, of toxic exposures we have, of surgeries that we undergo, of physical traumas. But the sclera does. The sclera does. And so we need to watch the sclera, where the iris gives us inherent predispositions. It teaches us where we need to watch, what areas we need to nurture to prevent problems. The sclera shows us where the problems are. And when we correlate it to the pupil, we then begin to understand if what we're seeing in the sclera has a bit of a genetic influence, or if it is a situational thing like getting hit over the head by a book, or, if we see, for example, I'm just going to pull up my son's eyes again. If we were to see in this lovely right eye that we had something significant happening right over here in the sclera, then we would be asking questions about lungs and heart. What is the current situation going on in the lungs and the heart? So the sclera gives us very dynamic information that can significantly help us to understand what's going on, and can help us to understand what questions we need to ask, maybe what medical tests we need to suggest the client has done, and so on, so that we can create more effective protocols for them. All right. Does that help you a little bit with understanding the impact of surgery and trauma on the iris, and the impact of different things changing in the body? So surgeries and traumas, and even diseases, infections, and things like that, that we will see indicators of in the eyes, in the sclera rather. Does that help a little bit? Yeah. So just want to take a moment to let you know that the next live online iridology course is starting on January 28th. Gives you a little bit of time to get yourself organized. However, because the course is limited to 10 students, I usually suggest not waiting too long. This program coming up, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Assessment System, is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. I find that a lot of holistic practitioners spend a lot of their own time when their client is not with them, creating programs for their clients. 2, 3, 4 hours. It's crazy, but they're not getting paid for that time. So when they know how to use iridology appropriately and well, It enables practitioners to actually get their program creation completed while they are with their client. So it saves time. It enhances things like client compliance because the programs are simpler. They're more laser focused. It also enhances long-term retention because the clients get better results and they want to know what comes next. So the goal is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it confidently so that you can easily integrate what you already know about nutrition and herbology to confidently create doable client programs in your paid client sessions. So what does that actually mean? It means that in class, once we get to about the halfway mark, it's 20 sessions long. So once we get to about the actually about the 7th or 8th session, we begin already in class creating protocols based on cases that we're studying in class to teach you not just iridology, but to teach you how to create those protocols while you are with your client, how to ascertain which of the markings you're seeing are important in the here and the now for this particular client, and not get bogged down in details that are not important. All right. And so with that, there will be an info webinar about the course on Thursday, December 10th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Now, unfortunately, because of the way my system is set up right now, oh, maybe I can do this. Just hang on just a second. No, I can't. I cannot post the webinar registration link, but if you will private message me, if you're with me on the webinar, if you will private message me, you can in that chat have it just sent to me. Send me your email address. If you're with me on Instagram or you're watching this after the fact on the recordings on Instagram TV, PM me or DM me your email address, or if you're catching the replay on Facebook or on YouTube, DM me your email address. I will make sure you get added to the invitation list to join me on Thursday, December 10th, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, so that you can learn more about the program and you and I can decide if the program is a good fit for you, if it's going to be what you need to further your abilities and to progress your practitioner business in ways that will be of benefit to you and your clients. So with that, my friends, that is all I have to share with you. I'm just wondering if there are any questions that you would like answers to right now. I'll give that just a few seconds for anybody who might be typing questions about what we talked about, what we looked at in the iPhotos today, or questions about the program that's starting on January 28th and the info session for it on December 10th. If there's anything I can answer for you, this is a great time to let me know. All right, I am not seeing anything come in. So there we have it. It's all good. Thank you so much for spending this half hour with me. I hope it's been of benefit to you. I appreciate you prioritizing this in your schedule, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon. Take care and have a good one. Bye for now.